Thank you, Jim. Good evening. Anyone who thinks about entrepreneurship spends a lot of time talking about innovation. We all know how important it is, especially those rare innovations that transform entire industries. But we are a lot better at praising that kind of innovation than at doing it. It's difficult. Today, we get to hear from one of those rare business leaders who have taken an extraordinary innovation from idea through very difficult and complex execution, succeed, make it a household name, and change the business world forever. Dick Sweeney is Vice President of Contract Manufacturing and Quality Assurance at Keurig. Before that, he led manufacturing and operations at Keurig. Before that, he co-founded the company. No small feat. Keurig K-Cups. It's single-serve coffee. I'm sure everybody in this room is familiar with this invention. I'm sure everyone in this room uses it regularly and enjoys it. A true innovator changes lives and makes life better for everybody. And we thank you, Dick, for that. Single-serve coffee is perfect every time, and there's no mess. For millions of serious coffee drinkers, K-Cup is right up there with the iPad, Netflix, the kinds of innovations that we wonder now how we ever lived without. Dick was at the heart of creating K-Cup. That meant he had to wrestle with an enormous number of just plain hard problems, and I'm sure he will tell us a bit about those. Packaging, engineering, service, quality control, contract manufacturing, and this is execution. This is the part of business that may be less sexy, but absolutely critical. It is the stuff that determines whether the innovation will succeed or will fail. If the innovation succeeds, it will see the light, and it may change the world. Dick Sweeney is a remarkable innovator in one more way that matters to us, and it matters to us a lot. He's also a US military veteran, and so we are doubly thankful and doubly pleased to have you here today. Today we launched the 6th cohort of our Veterans Launching Ventures program, and we are really honored to welcome them. We're especially grateful that Dick has honored to join us today. Thank you. Please join me in welcoming Dick Sweeney.
Good evening, and you have no idea how nervous you can get when you arrive here and you don't know the program. You know you're going to be introduced, but you don't know when. So, and then you hear all this, kind words said about you. Oh my God! But really, it's an honor to be here. A couple of things before I get into the presentation and how do we get out of this. Okay, I'm not a technocrat. Otherwise, I'd be in the IT business or something clever. I'd just make a cup of coffee. First, I want to thank the veterans for your service, and I'm honored to be speaking before you. Second, Karen, congratulations. That is really an incredible honor that is well earned. I know that. It was probably about 10 years ago when Karen came to visit me in my office up in the Boston area, and she said, "I see that you're an alumnus and you're on the board of the Honors College at NJIT. How come you're not involved with Fairleigh Dickinson? We help too." I said, "Well, nobody ever asked." She said, "Well, I'm asking." So Karen's the reason I'm here. There were 3 of us that started Keurig. I'm the only one who stayed with it. The other ones got out in '96. And given our unprecedented success, which required a lot of people, a hell of a lot smarter than I am, to make it happen, I get credited, though, with an incredible amount of brilliance that is absolutely laughable. But with that, I will begin to tell you a little bit about the Keurig story. And first, it's this overnight success that we started in 1993. We'll talk in three different areas. One is the entrepreneurial evolution, as I've witnessed it and personally experienced it. Innovation and expansion, how all that starts to happen and take place. And then a really key element of Green Mountain, our parent company, is corporate social responsibility. And a lot of us are here because we do have a sense of civic responsibility, and Green Mountain has a very strong sense of corporate social responsibility, which we'll talk about. So I talk a lot in threes, elements of threes, simply because I usually can't remember anything beyond that. But the first idea was, what we saw people back in '93 going to Starbucks, this little company that was getting started out in Seattle, and spending twice as much for a cup of coffee as they were across the street at Dunkin' Donuts. And we thought, why? What is it that's so great about this? And they'd take it to their office, and then they'd come back at breaks, and they'd buy another cup, and scoot off for lunch, and they'd get another cup. And we began to research what really makes a great cup of coffee. And one of the core elements is freshness. You need, obviously, good quality coffee, properly brewed, but freshness. Coffee stales very quickly. Any of us that have been in offices that are unfortunate enough not to have a Keurig system, you can smell coffee right away, stale coffee right away, just as you can smell a fresh brewed cup of coffee right away. So we concluded that the only way to really ensure people have a consistently good cup of coffee is to brew it as you consume it, one cup at a time, the idea. From there, we began to build working prototypes. I kind of put that in quotes because those prototypes embarrassed us as much as they worked, or probably embarrassed us more frequently than they worked. And you remember in 1993, 95, when we were trying to raise our venture capital money, everybody was a .com something. And we're coming into these, very classy venture capital offices and saying, hey, we've got a great way to make a cup of coffee. And they say, well, .com? No, just, we're going to make a great cup of coffee for the office. And then, half of them would say, thank you, leave. A few of them would say, okay, let me see what you have. And then half the time, the brewer that we were trying to demonstrate, our working prototype, would actually work. Other times, it would do the funky chicken and spread hot water all over a beautiful coffee conference table, and we would quietly back out and run sometimes. So there were a lot of, we must have made 80 presentations to venture capitalists, refining the business plan, which was really nothing more than expanding our lies as best we could to get more money and create interest. We first went in asking for $200,000 and nobody would talk to you. It wasn't until we started asking for $1 million that they said, all right, we'll listen, figure it out. So, another group of threes, simple beginnings, the entrepreneurs, John Sylvan, Peter Dragone, and myself. You need the idea, the founding idea, a concept, and something you can believe in and that you're ready to commit yourself to, or be committed. Then you need visionaries and enablers. So they were, in fact, the venture capitalists. The Food Fund was our first VC. They gave us $25,000 on a handshake, but that gave us an introduction to meet a bigger VC at the time, Memorial Drive Trust. Was an outfit in Boston that managed about $1 billion for Arthur D. Little. They were running their pension and profit sharing program. Arthur D. Little, that's a whole other chapter, but not tonight. And then Green Mountain Coffee Roasters. We presented to Steve Sable and Bob Stiller, who's the founder of Green Mountain and former chairman. Steve was the vice president of sales, marketing, business development. Green Mountain at the time was about maybe a $12 or $15 million company. So they said, well, this is interesting. Maybe you guys can pull it off and it would be kind of neat. Sorry, I keep doing that. What would you like from us? I said, well, we'd like an education in coffee and $500,000. And they said, we'll give you an education in coffee. So that was it. But keep that $500,000 in the back of your mind for a little bit. And then the next, and this is the key thing in any enterprise, and that's the leadership team. How do you get it off the ground? So after the venture capitalists signed up for $1 million, they also said you've got 12 months to make it work or we're folding. They hired Nick Lazaris, who led us for 11 years. And Nick is still a close friend. He's off on another venture enterprise right now. But part of his resume, he had been MIT undergrad, Harvard Business School, CPA, and chief of staff for Jay Rockefeller when he was the governor of West Virginia. So, an underachiever. Myself, and then Chris Stevens, who came from the Budweiser organization and knew something about distribution and selling the sizzle. When we started, three of us sat around a folding table in a loft space in a Waltham watch factory and thought, corporate culture, that's a little silly for three guys. But we did want to have a company that had some really core values. And the core values that we set forth then, and I try to foster every day at Keurig, are trust, respect, and responsibility. First for yourself, second for your colleagues, and then third for everybody in the community in which you operate. And that's become quite a big community and quite a global community. From that, we evolved a mantra: hard work, smart work, teamwork. And anybody who's heard me say this before, oftentimes the smart work would fail. The hard work had to kick in over time, but it was always the teamwork that would bring us to resolution. And resolution is core. Focus on resolution. Don't get hung up when you have a problem, and there will be problems, or events as I like to call them, and avoid the finger pointing, trying to find blame, making accusations. It just brings you headlong into a brick wall. Focus on resolution. And do that with the hard work, smart work, teamwork. Pull together all the energy, intelligence, and integrity that you can muster and drive forward. As we began to branch out first with Green Mountain as kind of our coffee mentor, if you will, and then involving contract manufacturers, companies that were supplying us different materials, it was vital to us that we develop a good, strong strategic alliance, not a buyer-seller relationship, customer, vendor, supplier, whatever. Have a strong strategic alliance where you need it. And the underlying goal I have then and today in any negotiation is that at the end of the day, neither party should recognize an unearned gain nor an unwarranted liability. So regardless of what all the contracts say and what all the penalty remediations happen to be, if you can stick to the basic principle of neither party having an unearned gain nor an unwarranted liability, keep the playing field as level as possible, interesting things can happen and great partnerships develop. So again, a few more items. 1995, before we got our first venture capital money, we sold our first prototype machine to Dunkin' Donuts for $15,000. So they had a couple of business development people that were kind of interested in what we were doing, but they thought, these three crazy guys in this loft space in a watch factory, what are they going to do? But it could be an interesting concept. So they said, we want to buy your prototype and bring it back to our labs where we have real professionals who will make this happen. So we said, great. Dunkin' Donuts, multi-billion-dollar company. We're three budding entrepreneurs. We thought, these guys can write the big check. We're in. What should we sell it to them for? So we kind of wrote numbers on the back of an envelope, tallied them up, came up to about $47,000. We divided by 3, rounded it off to $15,000, and we had our first revenue stream. Who knows what happened to that unit at Dunkin' Donuts? It was the last time we heard from them until about 2008. So if you go back to the previous slide, not everybody's a visionary, and that's the lesson learned there. In 1996, the founders departed. Chris Stevens, always, the sales and marketing guys are really good looking. Nick was a very serious, driven guy. Again, Nick I described in 3 words: the energy, intelligence, and integrity, and a capacity for work that I have never encountered before, and nor have encountered since. And working with him for 11 years really was an incredible honor. So there are the 3 of us with our very early Keurig machine, that one we actually got to market with. You can see the inventory of Keurig brewers in the background, and then the entire 8 K-cup selection that we developed, and we thought this is going to be a logistic nightmare, 8 varieties of coffee. So the innovation and expansion. How did we kind of pull this together? This is where I tell one of my favorite stories, deep dark secrets. When we were self-funded from 93 until 95, we were toying with this idea, well, how do we really get this single cup thing going? And what is a cup anyway? What will be the portion pack? And we were looking around for something. We did enough research to know that we needed an oxygen barrier container, very important to keep the K-cup fresh. And we literally tripped over a Ken salad dressing cup. And we thought, aha, it's about the right size. And on the back of a napkin calculation, we thought we can probably find a filter that will probably fit in there that should hold enough coffee to make an 8-ounce cup of coffee. So the truth be told, we built this multi-billion-dollar business off of a salad dressing cup. And so I read someplace where somebody said the light bulb wasn't invented by studying the candle. Well, the Keurig portion pack wasn't invented by studying coffee. It was finding a salad dressing cup. Initiation, our market entry. Chris and actually Peter Dragon, prior to that, developed a strategy that we should go into the OCS, the office coffee service market. Reason for that is it was devoid of any innovation. Everybody had the bun coffee makers in the offices all over. It was very forgiving, and our coffee machines needed a lot of care to keep working in the early days, and a low cost of entry. All you had to get was the link up with a couple of office coffee service distributors, as we affectionately called them, CAD, Keurig authorized distributors. They all wanted to be exclusive once they got in. We said, no, we're selective, not exclusive. Another key thing for budding entrepreneurs, wherever you can, avoid exclusive agreements. Just a little word of wisdom there. So the distributor who was putting these bun units in, going around to offices, and they'd set up the coffee machine and sell the cups, the sugar, the creamers, the napkins, the stirrers, all the tchotchkes that go with that. They would make about 2 cents on a cup of coffee. With the Keurig system, they made about 10 cents. So avarice is a great motivator. They said, okay, their machines may not work all the time, but if they'll stand behind them, we can make some money off of this. And that got them excited. So the K-cup, the 3-legged stool. Leg 1 is the portion pack. You know the secret of the salad dressing cup. Airtight filter, pressurized system. The coffee, after it's brewed and put in, sometimes you'll get a K-cup that's we call distended or puffy. It's because the coffee inside has been outgassing, and it gives off CO2. You also get that anytime you have a cup of coffee at 6,000 feet, because of the atmospheric pressure. They're all packaged at about 15,000 feet. Some of you guys remember your physics classes, I'm sure. The filter. We needed a filter material that we could heat seal to the inside of this plastic cup, this oxygen barrier cup. So we found a tea bag filter that had a polypropylene fiber woven through it, and that gave just enough plastic to heat seal. And from a technological point of view, heat sealing the filter, forming the filter, capturing it in unautomated machinery, putting it into the cup, keeping it in place, because a filter is like a gossamer wing. It has no structure to it. And then heat sealing that without burning through the cup or doing a lot of other nasty things was one of the most difficult challenges probably in the first half dozen years until we really figured out how to do it and had enough money to execute it. So at the end of the day, a great tasting cup of gourmet coffee every time. Leg two, something nobody ever sees, is the packaging equipment that has to make these now millions of K-cups. This year, I think we're looking at something north of 5 billion K-cups that will be consumed. And so the filter, forming the filter was a big innovation. Dispensing the cup, the salad dressing cups, that was done on a lot of different types of equipment, specifically salad dressing equipment. Insert and heat seal the filter. That was innovation. That was a challenge. Dosing the fresh ground coffee, tea, and later other beverages. That could be very tricky. Different roasts of coffee have different grind profiles, have different moisture contents, different amounts of oiliness, and trying to get a consistent volume every time based on the type of coffee you're using was an incredible challenge. How do you keep the coffee fresh? Well, once we get it in the cup, we evacuated the oxygen in that cup and replaced it with nitrogen and then sealed it. So you had to do that in a modified atmosphere portion of the packaging line that just flooded it with nitrogen and displaced the oxygen. So that's why your K-cup has a 12-month shelf life and your coffee is always fresh. And then have a automated check weighing and put it off and put it in a box. So the lines I developed were operating on a good day by design at 100 cups a minute. The lines that we now use get up to 400 to 600 cups a minute. So clearly we hired a lot of really smart guys to take care of that after we got past that concept stuff. And then leg three is what you all know and come to use every day, and that's the brewer itself. And it's a fairly interesting piece of processing technology in there. It's taking a specific volume of water, and now a selected volume of water, depending on what you choose. It maintains it at a precise temperature. It delivers that water at a specific volume and times the whole brewing process while monitoring various pressures and looking at differential pressures so it knows when to shut off. So it's fairly complex. So I often tell people I've spent the last 20 years coming up with the most complicated way possible to make a cup of coffee simply. The business model. I like to say glibly, the business model is really very simple. You identify a legally addictive substance, you put it in a portion pack, and you collect a royalty. What's the big deal? So we had, before we were acquired by Green Mountain, we had different licensed coffee roasters where we would install packaging equipment. We would have our CAD network, the distributors, who would buy the brewers from us that we had contract manufactured, and they would place them in the offices. They would buy the coffee from the roasters who were packing them, and the roaster would then pay us a royalty on every cup they sold. So it was a pretty neat model, and it's now a case study at both Harvard. I think Harvard has 2 case studies, and at the Kellogg School. So it was pretty cool. But again, legally addictive substance, put it in a portion pack, collect the royalty. Just kind of figure that one out. So some of the timeline recaps. 1995, we sell the first brewer for $15,000. Green Mountain becomes our first licensed roaster. They were helping us from 93 until 97. It wasn't until 97 that we actually had a functioning packaging line. In 1998, we entered the OCS market. We delivered the first van load of about a dozen brewers to corporate coffee services in New York on Martin Luther King's birthday. So, in that year, we sold 1,394 brewers. We thought, all right, more than 100 a month. We're on a run. In 2001, 2002, we had other coffee roasters enter our stable, Dietrich's, Millstone, Timothy's. In 2002, a company from Japan wooed us, flattered us really, made an investment, and they have, they're roasting coffee and selling brewers over in Asia. Haven't seen anywhere near the success we have, but it's been a very nice business, and it was always nice to say we're international. In 2002, our revenues broke $20 million for the first time, which was pretty cool. In 04, 05, we entered the at-home market, a big challenge. This is when we decided, okay, we've got this nice office coffee service business going, and that perhaps can grow to about a $1.5 million, a $200 million company if we're really fortunate. But the holy grail, 70% of all coffees consumed at home, is to be able to succeed in the home market. And in a prior life, I had been involved in retail appliances, and I was always the one that said, don't go there. That is a terrible business, because retail is very unforgiving. Unlike the office coffee service business, where if they have a broken machine, the distributor would quick pull that one back, send it to our shop, we'd repair it, he'd replace it with another one, we could keep it going. When a consumer spends, anywhere from $100 to $200 for a Keurig brewer, and they take it out of the box and it doesn't work, they're not going to call and say, oh, can you please repair this? You have to get it right the first time, every time. And that's where product reliability, that's when I shifted from my engineering role over to the quality role, where reliability is key. And reliability is really a function of quality over time. Quality can be very binary, pass, fail, let it go. But the key is reliability. Keep the brewers up and running, because every brewer is an annuity. And where we're different in the retail world is that when Bloomingdale's, Kohl's, Bed Bath & Beyond, whomever sells a toaster oven, they don't make money until they sell their next toaster oven. And selling the toaster oven doesn't generate any traffic for the retailer. The Keurig brewer, they make money on it, but it also generates traffic. People come back in to buy the K-Cups. And few things are more important to a retailer than traffic. In 2006, we had a successful Christmas season. In 2005, our venture capital teams decided exit, sell this company. We hired Société Générale to dress us up and parade us around to the general public to see who was interested. At that time, Green Mountain was our single source of revenue, our largest source of revenue in terms of royalties, and we were in fact their largest source of income. Green Mountain, just to back up a little bit, sold the first K-Cup to an office coffee service distributor in 1998, and at that time their stock traded at about $6 a share. In December of 2000, their stock traded at split at $50, and K-Cups were about 30% of their revenue. So we were making an impact, certainly on Green Mountain. So Green Mountain made the best offer, and they acquired us in 2006, I gotta stop doing that, for $168 million, which was a very nice number and a very good deal for them. In 2007, Nick moved on to teach at Harvard Business School. He did that for a year. He was to head up the entrepreneurial program there, and the academic requirements of Harvard were just too bureaucratic for his energy level. So he said, I'm out of here, and got involved in starting another company. Michelle Stacy took the helm. I'll tell you about Michelle in a minute. She's my boss. In 2008, despite the recession, we had a tremendous year. 2009 through 2010, we had visibility in 17,000 stores. We've been QVC's hottest selling product on the today's special value program. In 2011, Dunkin' Donuts signed on, Starbucks signed on. And 2012, we got the View program in the market. Part of the reason is that in actually this month, our patent for the K-Cup expired. And a lot of the investment community was very nervous. What's going to happen? They're just going to implode. So several years ago, about 5 years ago, we started working on our next generation of beverage delivery systems, and that's View, and it's on the market. We'll forever support the K-Cup, and it will have a good following. And view will offer a lot more bigger, stronger, hotter beverages and a wider selection of beverages to the consumer. So we've got some running room ahead of us. That coupled with the fact that we're still just a North American company. Larry Blanford came on board at Green Mountain in May of 2007. About the time Nick departed, he had a number of senior management positions at a variety of companies, chemical engineer by training, very sharp guy, another hard work, smart work, teamwork, energy, intelligence, integrity kind of guy. Michelle came to us from Gillette. She handled the global business. On top of everything else, she's a competitive equestrian in the senior division. She understood how to take Keurig from kind of a specialty coffee product to a serious consumer product company. She knew what was required to have a multi-billion-dollar organization and what kind of infrastructure was needed to do that. We didn't have a clue. She was bringing products, processes, and people on board that had lived in an entirely different world than we did, and it was very important because we wouldn't be here without her leadership. So Green Mountain acquired us, and then just after acquiring us, they acquired all the other licensed roasters that we had that were independent roasters: Timothy's, Van Hoot, Tully's, Dietrich's, Gloria Jean's, and several others. We're packing for Starbucks and Dunkin' Donuts. They don't have their own packaging lines. We do co-packing for them. We don't want to show that technology to somebody who isn't licensed or that we actually own. So they had to restructure their company into Green Mountain Coffee Roasters, Inc., which is the enterprise, as we call it, the Appliance and Technology Company, which is Keurig, the Keurig business unit, the Specialty Coffee business unit, which is the lineup of all the licensed roasters, and the Canadian business unit, which is essentially the same as the Specialty Coffee business unit, but guess what, for Canada. So they handle the Van Hoot and the Timothy brands. And then Green Mountain Far East, I got started. I started the process going about 2 years ago, and we now have an office in Hong Kong. That's a wholly owned subsidiary of Green Mountain. I'm the president of that, and then I'm the legal representative for Woofy, which is a wholly foreign-owned entity, which is based in Shenzhen, China, which will have its grand opening next month, and that will allow us to hire Chinese nationals to do some of the work that my team's been running back and forth to Asia on. So it's been an exciting period to learn how to do that, what's involved, and how, there I go again, very bureaucratic the Chinese can be. Among the many crazy stories is I had to go over one time on the last minute to sign a bunch of documents, and they had to be signed in fountain pen. I don't know. Who knows the difference, but anyway, had to quickly go out and buy a fountain pen. So that's our current structure. Going back to 1996, the first time we presented the Keurig concept was at a specialty coffee show that was being hosted in Boston. We didn't have any credibility to have a booth at the show, nor could we afford to have a booth at the show. So we hired a suite at the hotel next to the show, and then walked the show and literally tap people on the shoulders. Hey, you want to come to my room and see a new coffee system? That's what we had in the room. Wonder we weren't picked up for lewd coffee behavior. And then in 2012, we had the Keurig booth at the Houseware Show, and a separate booth this year where we introduced the View system. And I will say with all humility, it's one of the hottest booths at the show. It gets a great deal of traffic. So our marketing and distribution channels. We started in the lower left-hand corner in the office coffee service business. We're still in that. It's still an important part of our business. But the core business, 95% of the business is in the retail. And with retail, it has a number of different channels, each with their own unique requirements. Club stores, BJ's, Sam's Club, Costco, Specialty stores, Bed Bath & Beyond, Williams-Sonoma, department stores, Macy's, Kohl's, Bloomingdale's. Direct-to-consumer, our e-commerce business, a very important part of our business. Anytime we're testing a new product, we get it on the web first because we know who's buying it. We have immediate feedback. We know who to call. It gives us good face time with the customer. Grocery, Green Mountain was always big in the grocery chain, so now we have positions in different groceries. Stores and mass market, the Walmarts, Targets of the world. So, and each one of them are very unique and have their own set of peculiarities and demand. And then away from home is the generic heading for the office coffee service business. So our mission is a brewer on every counter and a beverage for every occasion. One of the things we want to do, obviously get a brewer on every counter, but expand the beverage line. We started off with coffee, we introduced tea, we have hot chocolate, now we have brewed over ice, we have certain nutraceuticals coming out. So a lot of interesting brands to expand the attachment rate to every brewer. Remember, it's the royalty on the K-Cup. Get that legally addictive substance and keep it going. So beverage and brand expansion, the whole host. If I was told to sit down and write them all out, I probably couldn't. Remember, I can't think past 3 items. So, but we do have a large variety, over 250. Some of the stores that have going, again, Bloomingdale's, Bed Bath & Beyond. Remember what I said before, what retailers love is that they have a product that's generating traffic after the initial sale. For any of you who go into retail business, the other thing that's critically important to retailers is to do what you say you're going to do. Have the product there. Do not leave the retailer with an empty shelf. Remember, a retailer has one perishable, irreplaceable commodity, and that's today. The product is either there on the shelf for a customer to see it today. If the shelf is empty, they'll go to the next store, the retailer next door. So never leave a retailer with an empty shelf. So from one to many, how we expanded from Green Mountain in Vermont to Montreal. Keurig's headquarters are in Reading, Massachusetts. We've just broken ground for a Keurig campus. I stutter when I say it, in Burlington, Massachusetts. We have distribution centers and roasting facilities in Knoxville, Tennessee, Castroville, California, and Sumner, Washington, and of course, the Hong Kong Limited and our PRC, the People's Republic of China subsidiary that we're just starting to staff up. The third item on the agenda tonight, so we're almost done, be patient. Corporate social responsibility. So we want to change the way business does business and take responsibility from throughout our supply chain, from the grower right through to the retailer, and taking responsibility for the environment, for the harvester, for the plantation owners, for the co-ops. We help develop co-ops, and coffee is grown in the temperate zones around the world. We're very active working with the Jane Goodall Association or Foundation rather, in Africa, in Tanzania, Uganda, Kenya, where they produce some great coffee, and the coffee that isn't great yet, we're working with them to develop great coffee throughout Central America, and then of course specialty coffees in Indonesia, the Sumatras, and the Kona coffee in Hawaii. So we have people that are on site every day looking at what we can do to help. Remember I talked about strategic alliances. We had a number of core components for the brewers that we got from suppliers in Japan. On the March 11th earthquake, we contacted each of those suppliers, and our first question, and they said, we're the only ones who did this. First question was, what can we do to help? It's not what's going to happen in my supply line. It's what can we do to help? And we got people over there, asked them, what's the best way to funnel money so it will do the most good? And the checkbooks were open, the sleeves were rolled up, and we went after it. We did the same thing in the earthquake and a number of other areas that we partner with. Strategic alliances are very important. So from tree to cup, we partner with the community, creating an environmental workplace. I'm often asked, what about the environmental impact of the K-Cup, and isn't that a bad thing, all the coffee and plastic and whatever. And we've done a number of life cycle analysis studies, and we're pretty neutral from brewing a cup of coffee in when you brew a pot and you consider the energy used, the amount that's wasted, the heater left on, and all that. So I don't want to, that's a separate presentation by itself. And the other thing that we've done, though, that you'll see is the coffee that's packed in a much smaller box now, where each cup is turned and twisted, so we reduce the space. Reduces warehousing space, reduces the shipping cost, reduces the packaging material. We look to get sustainable resources wherever we can. I talked about the oxygen barrier cup that's needed for coffee, when teas don't have that same requirement. So we're able to use a more environmentally friendly plastic. The View system has a polypropylene cup that is able to meet certain recycling standards. I don't have that committed to memory off the top of my head. It's on the website, but we think about this all the time. One of the challenges with having an totally environmentally friendly K-Cup is that having an oxygen barrier container and full environmental recyclability are, at this point in time, mutually exclusive. You can't do both. So if there are any budding chemical engineers out there, that's an opportunity. Certain accolades we've had, you can read them. We've ranked in the top 100 companies to work for nationwide. Keurig is ranked, I think, number 6 as one of the best companies to work for in Massachusetts. Ranked number 2 in Fortune magazine as an outstanding company in terms of business practices, all that good stuff. But we do what we say we're going to do. So that is just about the conclusion. So brewing excellence, one cup at a time. Ask me what I'm most proud of. Instead, I've had the opportunity to help incubate something that's created jobs. That's pretty cool. So, thank you. Lower right-hand corner, if you didn't guess, that was the entire Keurig population in 1996. So. Wow. Yes? It's a Dutch word, and my wife is Dutch, and she often gets credit for it, and she thought it was ridiculous. It was John Sylvan who kind of stumbled on it on a word search after we decided that we were going to try and come up with a name that followed the Haagen-Dazs model. We just simply plagiarized Haagen-Dazs in another language. Haagen-Dazs was an invented word in Brooklyn, but basically you find something that's a little difficult to pronounce, but once you get it, you remember it. And the Keurig had kind of a sound of quality to it, a German sound, even though don't tell that to the Dutch. We don't want to go into that history, but it's caught on. It's a little difficult to pronounce, but once you get it, people seem to have remembered it, and thank God, otherwise I wouldn't be standing in front of you. So that was it. It was a word search. In colloquial Dutch, I should finish this off. In colloquial Dutch, it means something that's neat. If you spoke to somebody who is probably over 80, and what Keurig meant when they were growing up, it was somebody who was nattily attired, full dressed. But one of the subordinate definitions is excellence. So we've taken some poetic license and initially went out to Keurig. It means striving for excellence. That's what we do. And in fact, that's what we really do try to do. Any other questions?
Please raise your hand and then wait for the mic while we find someone who's going to raise their hand next. Let me ask this. Competition. Mm-hmm. Now, we were in Europe earlier this spring, and so Nescafe.
Yeah, had this espresso. Right?
Espresso, the little tinier cups. And what about domestically? What are you facing competition-wise?
There are a lot of companies now that are entering the portion pack world. And now that our patents expired, there's some interlopers coming in with other types of cups that will work in our machines. So we're getting some rumblings there. Some are, we think, in patent violation and we're challenging them. Others are in trademark violation because they're using Keurig on their boxes without permission. So we have a whole legal team that's wrestling with that. But there's competition out there. In 2005, when we were putting together our business plan to dress ourselves up and go out and get sold, we thought that by 2010, forward thinking, we could be a $250 million company and be number 2 to Tassimo. Tells you what we thought, what we do. It's just a lot of work. I was talking to Ron earlier that even if you don't have competition, you better behave like you do. That's important. Yes?
I own a business. My name is Walter Gardner. I just completed the Veterans Program. And you mentioned in your presentation about pricing. You talked about the Starbucks expensive coffee. You talked about some less price.
Right.
What ideas would you give to a business as far as pricing strategies? Do you want to, because I've seen in my own practice, I had prices at one price, raise the price, and people are more interested. But what strategies would you recommend to a small business in pricing? How did you come to a price that you felt was the best one and you stuck with it and successful? Any ideas on that?
Well, you're constantly reviewing it to the budding entrepreneurs and say, cover your costs first. But let's see what the market is, what the market's like in your market studies. Find out where you fit in the stream. Are you a high-end product, a medium, low-end product? Well, again, as I mentioned earlier, we got started in the office coffee service business because the cost of entry was low. It was just get somebody involved to go out and show it in an office. We weren't doing any, print advertising or TV advertising that we see now. I look at the budgets for our TV ads, and I thought, my God, it was years before we earned that much money. And pay your suppliers well. Or your distributors well. The strategic alliance concept. Get them to buy into it, to be interested in it, and they can make money on it. And they'll help you with what the market will accept. So it's not an exact science. And understand, I'm the manufacturing quality guy. Marketing and pricing specialist could wax poetic on the whole concept of pricing theory. It's not my forte. Yes?
Hi, thanks for sharing your story. Could you talk a little bit about the very early days before you had any sales, before you had any external investors? How did you fund the R&D? How did you fund partner salaries and so forth?
We didn't have salaries. We borrowed money from friends and family, and Peter and John both came from well-heeled New England families. I grew up outside of Elizabeth in the shadows of the Bay Wave Refinery, so trust funds were not in my vocabulary. So their family helped us out early on, and then I borrowed a lot of money from a close friend in Holland, and had second mortgages on the house for tooling. We really rolled the dice on this, but it was perseverance and just keep going. When we got that $15,000 check from Dunkin' Donuts, we got to pay off some debt, paid our rent for a couple of months. I mean, you can't imagine how exciting that was. To put it kind of in perspective, I said in 1998 we sold to 1,394 brewers. On our production lines in China, we were producing 1 million brewers a month. The scale of the business, that's one of the things I didn't, keep doing that, one of the things I didn't bring up, but it's very important. Every business, whatever it is, has elements of risk to it. And I've always defined our risk in 3 realms. One was innovation, the second one was speed to market, and the third one was the scale of the business. So innovation, what are we doing that's new and exciting and better and improved? Is it really going to be improved? Really test your product. I digress for a second on product testing. I will tell anybody I've never wasted money on testing, but I've blown a lot by not testing enough or testing correctly. So test, challenge yourself. Don't think you understand what the consumer will do to a product. You don't. Get it in the consumer's hand and let them tell you what they can do to a product. You won't believe it. And as an example of that, when we first launched the business and people saw a K-Cup, any self-respecting North American knew exactly what to do with a plastic cup that had a foil lid on it. Remove the lid. I can't tell you how much signage we had in the early days to help you. Do not remove the lid. We had K-Cups with a lid and lines to it. And then once they removed it, I thought, I guess I have to put the coffee in this. So, it's some of the, you're bringing back the crazy stories of the early days. No, it was being self-funded, it was working endlessly, not taking vacations from, I didn't have a vacation until 1998. When we finally launched it, I took a week, and then a couple of years later, I took a vacation. And now, last year was the first time I've taken my full vacation allocation. But it's just perseverance and stick with it. And really, going back to what I said before, when problems happen, go after the resolution. We could have said, well, stupid customer, they should know better than to take the lid off. No, we have a problem, we have to resolve it. We can blame the customer, but obviously we didn't communicate well. And way back when I learned that there's only one rule in communication, and it's very simple, and that's the meaning of the message lies always with the receiver. So if they don't understand what you're saying, you're failing to communicate. I know I'm going off on a tangent here, but 1:30 I left my office in Boston to get here. Still have a white line in front of me. It was just a lot of work, a lot of energy, borrowing money, taking risks, and believing in the fact that if you really work hard enough and you get little successes, when you had the brewers that were leaking across the table, but you'd have the one or two times when it would really work well, and somebody would look at it and they get a cup of coffee that smells fresh and exciting. This is really cool. This may work. So those little things that kind of bring you along to succeed. But it's perseverance, and then strategic alliances, trust, respect, responsibility, hard work, smart work, teamwork, focus on resolution. Work for us, and far beyond our wildest expectations.
I had a question, however, you answered it.
I answered it?
Yes.
Got it, good. Anything else? Anyone else? Yes.
Hi, my name is Dan. I'm a senior here at Fairleigh Dickinson.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thanks. We'll see in a year if that's still the case. My question is, what are some of the initial challenges and obstacles when you first take your market into the international market that you face?
We're just starting to do that now, actually. We're looking at entering the international market, and one of the big questions that we continue to wrestle with is, where do we go to Europe? Europe has a coffee culture. Why would they want to be interested in us? And if anybody's read lately, their economy is not exactly the most robust. Go to China. They don't have a coffee culture. Maybe we can introduce it there. I spend, probably 120 to 150 days a year in China and Southeast Asia. I think that's an exciting place to start. But we don't have intellectual property protection there. How important is that? Do we go down to South America? Brazil's a growing economy. Do we look at Russia? The BRICS, Brazil, Russia, India, China. These are the countries with double-digit gross domestic products, or at least high single digits now. Everybody's suffering. But interestingly enough, that BRIC community is kind of avoiding the Western European enclave. So we're looking at making a decision. One of the reasons we didn't go international, and this is also important, again, with a startup, one of the reasons we didn't go internationally early on is because our venture group, who guided us very well, said, don't pollute your effort. America is still the biggest market. You know, you get 210 million households here, so you've got a lot of work to do here before you even think about the glamour of trying to romance the French and Germans and the Dutch and whomever with your neat idea. And by the way, they think they have better ideas anyway. So, you know, we still have a big market here to continue to capture. But
Thank
we're
you.
looking at it. Sure. Thank you for the question.
I'm going to just chip in one last question. When you were bought by Green Mountain Coffee, you went from being the co-founder to being part of this larger corporation. I'm just curious how that felt, that transition.
The transition went pretty well because we had been working with Green Mountain early on, and so we knew each other. We knew our strengths and shortcomings. There were times of suddenly Green Mountain is, you know, we own you now. So there's a little bit of attitude going on, and I'm sure on both sides. You know, I certainly have a bias with the attitude was with Keurig, but we figured out how to get along, and we needed each other an awful lot to continue to grow, and we did. We've grown, you know, tenfold from the acquisition. So they definitely had a strong ROI in acquiring Keurig. And quite frankly, had we been acquired by Kraft, Procter & Gamble, P&G, that is Procter & Gamble, Nestle, some of these other major consumer product companies, they would have, I don't think they would have adapted our culture correctly, and I doubt that I'd be still with the company. So, yeah, it worked out very well, but it was a very good mix. We had dated for a number of years before we got serious.
Well, thank you again, Dick, for that great story and for sharing your insights. Thank you for making that long trip down from Massachusetts, too. I know that wasn't easy. So just one last round of applause, and we'll give you a small token of our appreciation.